So I'm sure being back on campus brings back a lot of memories. What comes to mind?
Oh, absolutely. Well, a beautiful day like today, the first thing is college football and Lafayette against whoever and all the good times associated with it. It's something that I don't think you ever forget.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. And drawing from your experiences as a student and an alumnus, what do you think makes Lafayette special?
Well, the most special thing, and it's interesting, I was talking to the admissions director about why I chose Lafayette, and I think it's the brand associated with the small college, Division I athletics, and a student body I think that is fairly unique. You come into a situation where everybody is very accomplished and I think has a very good idea about where they want to go, and it sets a different tone for the academics here and all of the activities. And when you look around at the alumni body, it's very rare to have the number of really successful people come out of such a small college, and that is the Lafayette brand.
It's very true, and maybe you can help me out here. Who is this handsome man?
Oh, he's not handsome. My goodness, that is somebody from the past.
I personally like the tag.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That unfortunately was in style in 1979, back in the dark ages. But you can see what a career and two sons have done to me with gray hair now.
Oh my. That's a throwback.
That is.
So tell me, craziest thing you did on Lafayette's campus?
Craziest thing I did on Lafayette's campus, I really can't talk about because it would end up in the FBI and the Eastern Police coming back to arrest me.
Fair enough. Moving on. So a little bit on academics. You majored in metallurgical engineering. What made you decide to pursue that major, and what is it exactly?
Well, my interest was always in engineering, and I was trying to decide between medical school and graduate school. And my father was an MD. And I went into metallurgical engineering because Leon McGady, who was head of engineering at the time, did a lot of work with implant materials. And eventually that led me to my graduate work at Cornell, where I got degrees in engineering and veterinary medicine because I wanted to work on orthopedic implants. And at the time, they were all metal.
All right, very nice. And did you have a favorite class or maybe professor that left a lasting impact on you?
I actually had a number of them. McGady was terrific as a mentor and as someone who knew how to draw the best out of his students. He was very laid back in the way that he taught, but his ability to get the best out of you was really amazing. I remember Professor Leonard's in government was terrific. That was one of the electives I took outside of engineering. Professor Weiner in history. Several of my professors aren't here anymore, unfortunately. Another one is here that was very, very good was Anthony Navacco in physics. I took solid-state physics from him. So a number of great ones. And the nice thing is that at Lafayette, you are taught by the professors. Yeah. It's not like the larger universities where much of your classwork is done in association with the TAs. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, and they have time for you.
Absolutely, they do.
So you graduated from Lafayette in 1979. You went on to Cornell.
Right.
How do you think Lafayette prepared you differently than other students at Cornell?
Well, I think, again, the advantage came back to the fact that the professors were so engaged with the classes and the classes were small. When I looked at my peers at Cornell, a lot of them weren't as prepared as I was entering into the workload that you had to do in graduate school there. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the way we were taught here was a method that made you more self-reliant, it made you more disciplined, and because the professor spent more time with you, when you exited, you were prepared at a higher level than a lot of other universities.
All right, and then you worked in the aerospace industry for a while, living every kid's dream. So how did you get into that industry, and what is it like to be an actual rocket scientist?
Well, it's one of those good news, bad news things. When I left Cornell, I wanted to work for Jarvik's artificial heart program. And unfortunately, the funding dried up and there were no postdoctoral positions available. So the program was cut very far back and I wasn't going to get that position. And I was finishing my thesis at Cornell, and if you've ever been to Ithaca in the winter, you know it's about -10 and when the winds blow. And I was recruited by a company called Harris, which at the time was working on the tracking and data relay satellite system, the Galileo probe, and some other things. And I went down to Florida in February and I said, hey, even if it's only for a couple of years, this isn't too bad. So I'm going to warm weather, and that's how I ended up in aerospace.
Oh, wow. Not what I expected. And then why did you decide to switch to the pharmaceutical industry?
Again, one of those things in life that happens. At Harris, I was working on a number of programs related to space station and was asked to join the astronaut program. And When the selection process was going through, I was ranked third out of 7,000, and I got picked to train as a mission specialist. And before I was able to get flight duty, my right eye went bad and I couldn't pass the flight physical. So my vision in my right eye went to 21/20 or something. And I was trying to decide what to do after that. And a friend called me and told me a little bit about a company called West. And at the time, I wanted to work on novel ways of delivering drugs to the body. And it was one of the interests I'd always had out of the vet days. And this company was switching directions and allowed me to build a research program. And things went from there. So it's actually funny that missing the astronaut opportunity was a very good thing because it led to the opportunity at West. And the lesson there is a simple one. You're going to come into bumps in life. You never know what's around the corner. There's always something better that's going to happen. You just have to stick with it.
Very true. And then can you tell us a little bit about what you do as the chairman and CEO of West Pharmaceutical Services?
Yeah, my time is really divided into three different areas. The first one of which, of course, is managing the shareholders and outside expectations with the analysts that follow our company. So I spend an extraordinary amount of road time with the analysts and the owners of our stock talking about strategy, talking about market conditions, changes that are affecting our strategy, and then what we're doing in response to that. I spend another third of my time working with our board of directors. So the board's responsibility is to make sure that A, the strategy that the company is embarking on is the right one, that the funding that the management team wants to apply to that strategy is the right level of funding, and with the appropriate amount of risk will deliver the right return to our shareholders. And then the final third of my time is inside developing talent, looking at the next generation of managers, and also meeting with customers and making sure that the products and services we provide, of course, are of the highest quality and meet the customer's expectations. So really kind of three buckets.
Okay, cool. So here you are, one of the most predominant executives in America. What do you think played the biggest role in attaining your success?
I don't know that there's any one thing, but as I talked about in my interview for the Career Center, it's the broadest possible experience base. And one of the things that was really advantageous to me when I was young is that my father was given an assignment in Germany in 1964. So I lived in Germany from 1964 to 1968. And I learned to speak German, and I learned to work and live in a slightly different culture because I went to school with German kids, not with the U.S. kids. And it was after that he had two assignments, one in San Francisco, one in the state of Washington at Fort Lewis. And each time we moved, I had to adapt. So I didn't grow up in one place. I moved around 10 or 11 times. Each time, new friends, new location, different circumstances. And it just teaches you to adapt. It teaches you to have a different way that you look at the world. And the other thing that I think it placed upon me was seeing, especially in Europe and some of my travels since then, people living in different conditions and having an empathy for the fact that, we're very fortunate here. I'm very fortunate in my life. It gives you an obligation to give back. And one of the things we do at West, we have a program called West Without Borders. I teach everybody that no matter what you do, we have an obligation to give back. So each year we pick a charity somewhere around the world. We have 35 plant locations, and we do a program where children with special needs, children with disabilities, education, scientific education, development of assistance dogs, everybody contributes, everybody. So at the end of the day, it's not just about the profit for the company, which is incredibly important, but it's about making a difference where you work. And believe me, there have been many circumstances where it's delivered dividends to our company working with the local officials. So I strayed a little bit there about what was important to me, but I think it was growing up in circumstances where you have to appreciate the way the world is outside the U.S. It was a huge benefit to me.
Yeah. Well, it's great, very cultural. Can you tell us two or three things that would be helpful for students as they're trying to start their careers?
A couple of things. I think number one is I can't encourage you enough to take a second language, and not just take it, but become proficient in it.
Yeah.
And depending on where you want to go, if you want to work in Asia, you can learn Mandarin. If you want to work in Europe, you can learn German, French, Spanish, whatever, Portuguese, work in South America. Live and work in a different culture, okay? And don't just go over to Europe and live a quasi-Western lifestyle. Do something a little bit different. Go to South America, live and work in Rio, live and work down in Sao Paulo. Go into Asia, go to Malaysia, go to Vietnam, whatever. Get outside the United States and spend some time there. Those are the two most important things I can think of.
Did you study abroad when you were at Lafayette?
Absolutely. Not at Lafayette. No, I played baseball, so I was never able to travel. But I had the advantage of doing it when I was young. And when I was in high school, I was an exchange student. I took a year off. I went back to Germany to keep my German sharp.
Okay. Very good. And what skills do you think are most important in attaining success in the global marketplace?
I think the number one thing, and I tell all the young management folks that we are developing, there's a couple of key things you never ever forget. The first of which is, it's better to listen. Listen, listen, listen. You may think you know it all, even now. I see a lot of people in a position similar to me. They like to talk first and listen later. And you don't have all the answers, and you'd be surprised at what you can learn and do simply by taking in diverse viewpoints. And being able to do that and make decisions that are good decisions is one of the key things you absolutely need to develop. The other thing is working in teams. Those two things kind of go hand in hand, but the world is a pretty complex place, and what we do in pharmaceuticals is very complex. You don't have the old days of the engineer or the scientist or the analyst or the finance guy going off and doing one thing and coming back. You accomplish things by working in groups of 6 to 8 or whatever the right size is for the project and working together. So listening, being able to synthesize a lot of information to good coherent action plans, and working within teams are all critical skills.
And lastly, just looking back, is there anything you would have done differently with your time at Lafayette?
I would have done one thing differently. I wouldn't have taken Professor Miller's organic chemistry class, which actually haunts me to this day. I think it was the only C I got while I was here. And that was the hardest damn subject I think I've ever taken in my life. So sorry, Professor Miller, but there's no way I'm taking organic chemistry ever again.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us
It was a pleasure.
today.
Thanks for the time.
And go enjoy the football game.
I will. Thank you. Hope that works.